am really excited to be the moderator for this episode of Leaders Like Me speaker series. I am delighted to introduce our guest speaker, Danita Johnson. DC United is one of the founding clubs of Major League Soccer. They are among the most decorated teams in the United States with 13 domestic and international trophies. DC United has called Washington, D.C. their home for the past 25 seasons and play their home games at Audi Field in the nation's capital. Danita has 15 years of experience in the sports industry and has held several roles in the WNBA, NBA, and NBA G League. Before joining DC United, she was with the Women's National Basketball Association franchise, the Los Angeles Sparks, as its team president and chief operating officer. Danita is the first Black person to serve as a Major League Soccer team president and one of the highest ranking women executives in league history. Let's welcome Danita Johnson to Leaders Like Me. We can invite her in the chat or add some emojis.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor. Can you tell us about yourself, where you grew up, and how you chose your career path?
Yes, I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. My dad served in the military for over 20 years, so we moved around, what we used to refer to as like a little army brat because we moved everywhere. And for me, I grew up playing sports. I grew up playing basketball and a little bit of soccer, but mainly basketball was my love. And, I knew very early on I wanted to do something in life that I enjoyed doing. And sports was the one thing that really kept me centered. And as somebody that had moved around when I was young, it really brought, I met a lot of friends, kept me active. And so the opportunity to work in sports was something that really interested me. And back then it wasn't as prevalent about what the business actually is and like, how do you get into the business of sport? At that point, it was just like almost like a dream in itself, right? I wanted to do something, didn't quite know how to do it. I didn't necessarily have family members that had worked in the industry or anything of that nature or close friends. But I ended up going to school for sports management at Western Carolina University and really started to find my way through that experience.
It's really impressive, Danita. I know it's really hard to be in like a male-dominated world as a woman. So I know you're making a lot of like young women proud.
Thank you.
What are some of the skills and experiences one must have to advance in their career and a leadership executive position?
Absolutely. I think it's a lot of skills that you learn at a young age and you develop them as you grow older. You think about, for different ages, age groups in school, you learn about listening, right? And the importance of listening to people and really, being able to communicate with one another. So I think listening, communication are very important skill sets that you practice all throughout your life that you don't necessarily understand that it can really have an impact on how you get to show up in business or in your future world. So I think that chance to really learn like your listening skills, the way you can communicate, how to balance your emotions in different environments is really important. There's lots of times where people can get upset very quickly in different environments, whether it's school or work. And how do you balance that? How do you get along with others, right? You're really building a team and being a part of a team in the workplace. So a lot of skills and things that you do actively as you're growing up really apply to what you do in the workplace and really start to set you apart where you can lead a company and really start to think through things. And I think the last thing when it comes to just outside of like the soft skills is really, how do you become a problem solver, right? How do you work through problems and execute on them and working in groups and teams together? I think it's really critical for success that really start to set you apart. And I think those are the skills that often get lost where they think it's, just some magic of knowing a number, or understanding an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it may be, but actual interactive skills really help build on the future of being able to lead in a business.
That's a great answer, Danita. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's important to keep your emotions like intact under pressure.
Yeah.
A leadership position comes with many achievements as well as challenges and tough decisions to make along the way. How do you navigate through your decision making?
I take a lot of think time. It's funny, my staff was in my office last night making fun of the fact that they're like, if Danita needs to think about it, just give her time, right? Give her some space. Sometimes you don't want to be so reactive. And so for me as a leader, I know the decisions I make impact not only myself, our business, our staff, and our fans. And so I have to be thoughtful in my process of how I think and evaluate through decisions. I have to be able to look at things in a way where it's not just about me. And I have to think, how does this one decision impact others? And I think that's really important. I think it's a life skill that you can use in your day to day, right? If you make a decision and you're like, you know what, I just want to try this, or I just want to go out and do this on my own. But there are people that may be affected by the decision in which you make. And so I think decision making and being able to do that is really a critical skill.
What other life skills besides decision making help you?
I think another one is I try to find joy in things, right? Even in the challenge of things that we do every day, it really does. When you look at things from a positive lens and try to find like the light in the midst of any storm, it really does help you day to day. Because if we lean so deep into the issue that we can't figure out where light is in that issue or some type of pathway out, we can get lost. And so for me, it's really easy at work where you can get lost in the work, just like you can get lost in life. And so I always try to find the light in things. And that is something that really helps me in my work from a day-to-day perspective.
Yeah, it's always good to stay positive.
Yeah.
What would you say is the toughest lesson you've had to learn in your career, and how did you handle it?
um, I think it's a lesson of making mistakes, right? I think one of the tough lessons is not always getting it right. And when people are watching or you're leading something, or even as you're growing in your career, it's hard to swallow that pill when you mess up. And so it's not necessarily just one thing, it's going to happen over and over. It's how you react to it, how you deal with that mistake, how you show up the next day is really important. And so a tough lesson for me early on was that I used to try to be perfect in everything I did, right? And I learned that I can't be perfect and I'm going to make mistakes, whether it's I make a bad decision on a deal, whether it's I can't be at an event and I said I could be there and I mess up my own schedule, whatever it may be, right? And so it's things like that that are mistakes that really make me learn. And like, or if I unintentionally hurt somebody through the work, right? If I unintentionally make a mistake where it was a lack of communication between me and employee, that stuff really does bother me. You learn from that. And I think that's really important. For me to stay professional when making a mistake is to stay calm and know that mistakes are part of the process. And if I can be calm and work my way through it and actually talk through why did I make the mistake? Where did I have a misstep? Right? There was something in the process or something that I missed that didn't actually occur in the way it was supposed to that probably led to that mistake. And so what it teaches me is to pay attention early. Sometimes we're moving so fast between our phones, life, everything that we miss it. And we're like, oh, okay, we got it, but it necessarily wasn't done to the best of its ability. And so I think taking the time and carving out time to actually execute the work is really important.
Yeah, being self-aware really helps when making mistakes.
Yes.
What would you say to your younger self before starting your career?
Good question. I think what I always tried to tell myself, even when I was younger and now, is it takes time and how it's supposed to be will be. But my effort is always needed, right? So like you can't sit back and just wait for things to happen. And so I always tell myself, my younger self, is that if you want something, you have to do the actionable things to make that happen in your life. And whatever that one step is, and you take that next step in front the next day, that's how you create change. You create change in yourself that way, you create change in your work that way. And so if I was to tell my younger self, and I was sitting there talking to my younger self, those are the things I would be saying. That if you want something, you go get it and you figure it out. And you try and you get up and you try harder and you ask for help when needed. And don't be so stubborn that you don't listen to others.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like as a woman of color, you have to try harder than most people to succeed.
Yeah.
My fellow interns and I have a mentor being in Urban Alliance. How has a mentor or role model of yours impacted your life?
Yeah, they guide me. Sometimes they're not even mentors that I talk to every day. There's people that I watch or read about at times that they inspire you that, through they can overcome. I think mentors are a good sounding board for us at all levels and ages in our lives, that sometimes we need to hear perspective that maybe we can't see in the midst of the storm. And so for me, my mentors really help they guide me, they encourage me, they challenge me, and they don't let me settle. And I think that's really important. And I don't want a yes mentor. I want somebody that is really going to push me forward.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Taylor has really pushed me to be like a better version of myself. Like I can tell how much I have advanced thanks to him.
Yeah.
This is an exciting year for me and my peers. We will soon graduate from high school. Some of us will go to college and some of us will start full-time work or pursue additional training. What advice do you have for us as we get ready to start on the next phase of our life?
Yeah. You said at the end of that, you said phase, right?
Phase of our life.
Yeah. So I think in saying phase is to understand that this is the first phase of that adult life, right? That in your young adult life, I'm gonna be really clear, not just like adult, like your young adult life. This is the first phase of your young adult life. And so through that phase, you are going to face challenges, right? You're now going to be exposed in a new way. You're not necessarily at home with family or extended family or friends, right? You're now responsible for yourself. And I say this in our world because so much has changed that it is really important for you to know your actions now matter, right? They matter more than they did the day before. Each day they get a little bit bigger, right? And they can affect your life. And like the decisions you make each day are important. And listen, you're going to make mistakes. It doesn't always have to be right, but stay focused. Stay focused on what your overall goal is and what you want to achieve. And there's going to be times where that goal gets knocked and you're like, wait, this is not where I want to go anymore. I'm lost. You will find your way, but stay steady in the course. And if you get so distracted by the outside world, it will take you off your course. So stay firm in yourself, find places of peace, have quiet time. It's really critical to have think time, especially at a young age, because often it's always noise. So make sure you carve out that time for yourself to think, to process, and to really understand what's going on around you as you have to make some of the very first key decisions in your young adult life.
What do you think we can do as young adults to like get distracted from the outside world?
Yeah, to not get distracted?
Yeah, to like not focus so much on like family, to focus on our goal, like our career goals.
Balance, right? I think it's taking time. It's to carve it out and make it intentional. When you want something, like if it's like that one pair of sneakers that you really want and you're trying to figure out how you're going to get it, you get really intentional about that, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to save here. I'm going to get online when these drop. I'm going to make sure I get those shoes, or I'm going to get those Beyonce tickets, whatever it is, right? You're going to make that a priority. And then you game plan around whatever that priority is. So I think part of you staying focused in this is making sure that you carve out the time for yourself to have that, right? If it's important, make time for it. And then you have to start to worry about some of the things that maybe are not as important in your life. Like, do you have to go out every single night of the week? Maybe not, right? It's tiring. You're older, trust me. All right. So like you have to make those decisions. Like, so where can you find balance and prioritize that? And know that like you don't need to keep up with everybody. Keep up with yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone is their own person and we all have different goals.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Danita. Those were great answers. Let's start with the questions from our students. If called to ask a question, please first state your name, your city, and the high school you attend. Let's welcome Roberto Diaz from the Greater DC region.
Hello, my name is Roberto Diaz, and I attend Jackson Reed High School in Washington, D.C. The question I had for you was, what keeps you motivated in your career?
Ooh. Like my overall piece in this, and some people know this, some people don't, is like one of my key motivators is to be a person that can affect change in sport. And it's really important to me when I think about, especially being a Black woman, and like so many African Americans and minorities that participate in sport usually come from communities that are not well supported. And to sit in organizations such as this, or when I was at the LA Sparks, what we do from a community aspect and actually give back really matters to me. Because yes, we can all be great athletes, but it's the life after that also matters. And I want to set people up for an opportunity to succeed. And when you have this type of presence as an organization, it's really important for us to show up for our community. It's important for us to contribute to our communities, to give back, and provide opportunities and pathways for folks. So even just in doing moments like this, and it's like, listen, if one student from this one call decides I want to work in sports, and they took this as a moment to think about this could create that pathway, I'm living in my purpose in that sense. And I think that is so important to me, because if it wasn't for somebody ahead of me, I would not be sitting here today.
Let's welcome Naomi from the Greater DC region.
Hi, my name is Naomi Charisari. I currently go to Paint Branch High School. And my question is, how do you feel being a Black woman in a position of power such as yourself comes with different conflicts and affects you?
You know, one of my things I love about this is that I get to bring like the essence of being a Black woman, right? So often people don't get to truly feel what we bring to the table as Black women. And the reason I talk about like living in my purpose and the importance of how I show up every day is because I can be, and I know that I am, whether I like it or not, I'm a representation of our culture and our people. And so it's important for me to show up in a way that is respected, a way that represents all of us well. And I know some people don't like, the pressure of being a role model or whatever it may be, but I know what I'm okay with. And I'm okay with showing up as a strong Black woman in these rooms that can say, I can sit at this table, I can negotiate that deal, I can have that tough conversation, and I can still be me. And I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of this. And it took me a while to get to this point to really be like, okay, you have to embrace that. And it really does matter.
That was a great answer, Danita. And thank you, Naomi. Let's now invite Kelly Ballinger from the Detroit region to ask a question.
My name is Kelly Ballinger. I'm from Southeastern in Detroit. My question was, what are your personal qualities and what are some challenges that you have faced or is still facing stepping into your career?
Yeah. Personal qualities, I think as I talked about earlier, I think I'm a really good listener to people. Like I can get in tune with people really well. And when you manage a lot of people, I think that's so important to be able to pick up on clues, like whether it's how they sit in the chair and like if my staff walks by and you can tell they're just not having the best day. I think one of my strongest qualities is that from a business perspective, I really can look at I know this about myself. I can look at a business and I can look it through and through. I can tell you like the ins and outs of it, how it ticks, how it may not be ticking. Like I can find the holes and the gaps. And because of the listening skills and the ability to like put the gaps together and like the leadership of people, one of my key skills is that I can build strong teams. Like I can build a team of people to make a business run. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but I can build a strong group of people that can make things move. And so from a business perspective, that piece is one of my strong qualities. It's like my own personal quality that then marries the business. And between the two, I think that's one of my keys to leadership. It's my sweet spot. It truly is.
My name is Batanya Solomon. I'm from Paint Branch High School, and my question was, how was being part of Delta Sigma Theta sorority? Like, how did that help you as a college student? How has it helped you now?
I mean, only the greatest story in the world. No, I'm just kidding. But serious at the same time. It was so important for me. It was like a changing point for me in college. I pledged my junior year. Oh, it feels like so long ago at this time. But what that did for me, it taught me about sisterhood. It was being surrounded by other women of color that really wrapped their arms around me in a different way, that really supported me. I took on the leadership role there. I was the president of my chapter there. So that was really a unique thing, like leading my chapter and like it's like my first president role, right? So like having that ability to like step into something in a new way. But it really started to shape me in college and like have a big impact on who I became. And it was more than just like the step shows or like going to parties. It was more than that. Like that's a piece of that. Everybody knows that about college life, but it was about the sisterhood. It was about the service. It was about learning structure and process. That was really important for me.
Yeah, I was thinking of pledging to a sorority, a Black sorority, once I joined college. So I wanted to ask that since like that question is kind of personal to me. But
Yeah.
if it's fine, I also wanted to ask like, how do you think it helped your professional life? Do you think after you graduated from college, it helped connect you to jobs or anything like that? Or even in college, do you think it helped you with like landing internships or job opportunities or volunteering?
It did. It helped me with connections. It also helped me when I was moving around. So I moved a lot in the early parts of my career. When I was like 20, 21, I moved across the country to California. And one of the things that was good about it was that the alumni chapter there of the women like took me in. So wherever I went, even to this day, like if I move to another city for work, one of the first outreaches I make is typically to the alumni chapter. And it really does help me just feel more at home, and you find like this place of peace. So you never feel like you're alone, no matter where you are. And that's a really important piece to it for me. Professionally, some of my connections through the sorority life has been really great. Like whether, people see my LinkedIn profile or something like that, or whether they read my bio, they'll stop me at whatever event. And, I just spoke at the Black Sports Symposium the other week in Atlanta, and so many young girls that have recently pledged were there that were Deltas, and just gives them a easier point of entry to have dialogue. So I definitely think it can be very beneficial. It's about the right chapter and the right thing for you.
All right, thank you for answering my questions. I
You're
really appreciate
welcome.
Those were some great questions. I just wanted to add on, do you still keep in contact with some of your sorority sisters?
Oh, yes, we definitely have a text thread. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's good. I will now like to invite Peter Ricks from the Greater DC region to ask a question.
Hey, I'm Peter Ricks. I'm from Springbrook and Silver Spring. You emphasized like being calm and non-reactive, and I was wondering if like that's something that you always had or something that you had to develop, and how you developed that and practiced it.
I definitely developed it and practiced it. When I was like in my early 20s and I was leading teams. And I remember I was telling somebody the story the other day. I would get so frustrated at times because it's like you want people to do what you're telling them to do. And it's like as easy as my sales team just making enough calls for this. Like, why can't you just do this one thing? Why can't you make the phone call, right? And it would just frustrate because it floored me. And I had to learn that one, everybody doesn't operate the same way I operate, and that's okay. But how I talk to them matters, how I show respect to them, and how I encourage them can drive the change that I want to see. And so I had to learn how to reposition my conversation and dialogue, because there were things that maybe I didn't ask the right questions to them or connect to them in a way that actually helped move things forward. So I had to take a step back. I remember after my first few years managing and really evaluate, like, how do I get the best out of people? And it was actually showing up as the best version of myself. And that's when things started to change.
I will now like to introduce Raven to ask a question.
Hey, my name's Raven.
Hi, Raven.
One of the questions I have is, what's your advice on trying to get a sports like internship? Because I went to intern for OTE in Atlanta overtime.
Yeah.
And like I met the guy that runs it, but I just,
Brandon.
Yeah, I don't know. I gotta see.
Best thing to do, two things. One, go ahead and apply online of whatever platform, because they do look at it. Okay, so just whatever platform that the applications go through, apply from an online perspective. Then what I would do is see if, from a LinkedIn perspective, if you have any connections to like your university, your high school, through Urban Alliance, if they have any connection back. So start asking folks, be like, does anybody know anybody that works at Overtime, right? And ask them to do a favorable entry for you. And that's really just saying, hey, could you reach out, maybe connect this person with me? And if you don't have a connection, what I highly recommend is LinkedIn is amazing. And I even reply to my LinkedIn messages that people send me. I don't do it every day, but I reply back to them. Go on LinkedIn, find the person, look for them. If it's not the head person, find the HR person for the organization and reach out to like the head of people or culture and say, listen, I'm looking for internship opportunities. I have applied. Could you at least potentially like share like when you all open internships or where I can find them? I'd like to intern potentially with the organization. So that way, typically they'll reply back with a link or some type of information for you. But those are three key things that I would always say, just try to do in that moment.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I will now like to invite Shakir to ask a question from the Chicago region.
Hi, my name is Shakir. I go to school at Disney. I'm from the Chicago region, like Yurita just said. My question is, because you briefly touched on mistakes and learning from them, I want to know personally, throughout your life, what's the mistake you learned the most from?
Oh, goodness. I think my biggest one is probably personal versus professional. Do you want a personal one or a professional one?
That's that
Let's
perfectly.
go, because it happens to everybody. I'll go crazy on detail, but I think probably one of my worst things is like when I've like ruined a relationship with a friend, right? Like you actually did something that truly hurt or like destroyed a relationship with a friend in some capacity. We all go through that, especially as we get older, right? Where you unintentionally hurt their feelings and it just destroys a relationship. I think that's probably one of the worst things I think I've probably ever done, is just like hurt a friend's feeling to the point that we were never friends again. And it's hard, right? You've probably been through that, where you've lost a friend in your life in some capacity. And it's a really hard thing to get back. And you have to put a lot of work in to try to make sure that you can either create that friendship again, or also like mourn the loss of the friendship. And I think that was a big thing for me, that had occurred like years ago when I was younger. And I think from a professional standpoint, thinking you know too much that you don't know. Like sometimes we just get ahead of ourselves and we think, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. And then you mess up the whole entire thing because you thought you knew, but you didn't ask for help. Moments like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a great question, Shakir. Now I would like to invite Derek Taylor to ask a question.
Hello, my name is Derek Taylor. I go to Enchantress downtown campus. My question was, how did you balance your personal life, your work, and your professional life?
Yeah. Early on, it was a horrible balance, just being very honest. Like I worked a lot. You know, I would be in my office till like 10 o'clock at night. I get up at 6 a.m., start working, like just that was what I did. And I was just grinding it out, right? A lot of people talk about that and they go through those phases. I think as I learned, I started to learn when you work that way at that capacity, and I preach this to my team a lot, you actually don't have think time and you don't have space. And so without that, you really don't actually produce the best work when you overwork yourself. And what I started to do is like, I try to balance myself where, and it comes with time, right? It comes with time, it comes with opportunity where you can do a little bit more, you have space for yourself a little more. Sometimes you do have to go through those moments where you just need to be focused. But there are other times where you're like, you know what, I can take a moment and take breath for myself in order to find that if I actually step away, I can come back with fresh eyes versus the eyes that were up till 1 a.m. and I'm looking at it again at 6 a.m. And so I started to really hone in on time scheduling my days. And I used to keep a one sheet and I would actually write in boxes 9 to 10, this is what I would do, 10 to 11, this is what I would do. I started to understand my rhythm of my day. And I took control of my day by like writing it out and planning it. And there's things that happen that throw it off. But I started to learn like, what are my best hours? I know if you meet with me between 10 and like noon, you get a great version of me. It used to be like the 3 o'clock hour, it was like, you didn't want to talk to me. So finding that balance in my day actually helped me find balance in my life.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was a really great question, Derek. We can now invite Bryce Scott to be the last person to ask a question.
How you doing? My name is Bryce Scott. I go to Urban Prep Bronzeville campus in the Bronzeville side of Chicago. My question was, what advice could you give us as interns to help us gain more opportunities to lead us to our future professions or pathways?
Yeah. All right, these are skill things that you need to do. Okay, they're important. Couple things. One, with your overview of your resume, whether it's your high school teacher or whether somebody like if you're in college, whichever one, you need to have like one of your teachers write a summary about you, have them write something about you, have them write like a note about you and how you show up in the classroom and how that could be reflected in an internship in the workplace. You are literally getting a written recommendation without having to go back and be like somebody's checking your references. So on your resume, this is something I don't see often, but I think what you should do is like have like a little quote box from like your teacher or your professor on the actual resume that is like they're giving you like an extra oomph. Okay, you don't see that often, but it's a really cool way to set yourself apart because it's another form of validation from somebody else at a professional level as you're starting to intern, which I think is really important. The other thing is the sourcing of the internships, okay? So there's a ton of internships. There are a ton of students out here trying to get them. How do you get your foot in the door? And that's where it starts to get sticky, because a lot of times for our minority students and minorities as a whole, we don't have the friend in the office that's going to get us into the internship, right? So what you want to do is this. You need to understand, like, if you're like, these are the top 5 places I want to intern, you have to start that process a little bit earlier than when they just open the application. Okay. It is what it is. It happens. Somebody wrote here, I saw a question pop up about like the difference about being a minority. Sometimes we have to approach things differently. Okay. And so what I would say is, you start softening, saying like 6 months ahead of time, you're like, these are the top 5 teams. These are top 5 organizations I want to intern with. I'm going to start sending notes once a month to somebody different in that organization that fits in the realm of where I'm looking for an internship. So the HR person, the lead of the department. And because what's going to happen is, and if you have to do it gracefully, right? It can't be like, oh, I just want an internship. You need to craft a note, work with your group from Urban Alliance, get the support to craft a note to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking to learn. Okay. And if you craft that note, you position that note in that email that you send. Okay. Because now what you're doing is you're doing a soft intro into the company. I remember one time an intern here, we hired him. He had emailed 3 people in our organization. You don't want to be overbearing, but you want to say you're kind of setting a precedence for yourself in a most graceful way possible. Okay. And then in addition to that, anytime that they're hosting anything, talk to your schools, the companies that you're looking for. Are they doing anything where, hey, Urban Alliance, like, I really want to intern. If it's 3 or 4 of you that want to intern with a certain organization, go to Urban Alliance and ask them, hey, do you think we could do like a job shadow day? Like, how could we get in on a job shadow day at this company? This way, Urban Alliance can help actually bridge that gap for you all, that by the time you start to apply for internships, you're using the organization is supporting the fact to help filter students into certain organizations from an internship perspective. So it's really about using the resources around you, asking questions and thinking about it in a new way.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, that was a long answer. Sorry, it's a lot to it.
That was some great advice. Thank you, Danita. We can take one more question from Jamar.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jamar Stanford. I'm an intern at Rocket Mortgage here in Detroit. I go to Southampton High School. I should answer that already. And my question was, how does your race and or gender affect your professional and personal journey, and how do you deal with that? And do you have any tips dealing with being any type of minority in a field dominated with people that aren't one?
Yeah, good question. It's interesting. It depends on the room at times, right? And this is a fun question. I'm going to answer this best way possible, in the most politically correct way possible. But I think the key in this is that you have to realize there's going to be points and times where no matter what you do, some people just are not going to accept you. And it's a sad world that we live in that does occur. But what they can't do, and what I literally pride myself on a lot, is like, you can't take away my work, right? You can't take away how I show up every day and how I treat people. I control how I treat people. I control how I talk to people, and I control how I show up in the room. And so I control what I can control. How they may feel about me, that's their own issue. And sometimes being able to separate the two, you have to do that, because there are going to be people that will stand with you, and there will be people at times that will not. Go with the people that stand with you, right? And you don't have to do anything extra to those that are not willing. Let them be. You know, in my own words of that, I said, God takes care of that. You know, you let them be, right? But what you focus on is the people around you that are willing to show up and support you. And sometimes those non-believers will be the first ones that turn around and turn in believers, because when it strikes and the iron is hot and you keep these things moving, whether it's in business, whether it's in your internship, all people want to be in a good place. All people want to ride the victory train. We saw Miami win it last night, right? People want to ride the train. All of a sudden, everybody's Miami fans again, right? So you see that happen. And so just be authentically you, understand the rooms in which you walk in. There are moments where sometimes you may need to adjust. And I don't mean you have to change who you are, but you need to understand the room that you're in. And so I encourage you to show up authentically as yourself. and to lead in a way that is true to you, and really go for it. And don't realize you don't need everybody with you to be successful.
That was a great answer, Danita. I loved all your answers, actually. We can now move on to the lightning round.
Let's do it.
Okay. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. What is the best book you've ever read?
Best book I've ever read. I would probably say, I'm actually reading this book right now by Cynthia Marshall. It's probably the best book I've ever read. She's a CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, and I absolutely love it. I feel so related to it. And The Last Lecture, that's my other favorite book.
I'll have to look into those.
Yeah, The Last Lecture is amazing.
What's one animal that describes your personality?
I would probably say, it's funny we talk about this. It sounds funny, but it's like that elephant, like they remember things. Like I don't forget many things. It stays in my mind. Like it's right in that wheelhouse, and like they're protective. And I know it's like a large animal, but I don't need to be a large animal in a room, right? Because they move like they're small animals. But they take up presence. And I think that would be a good one.
Yeah, I really like that answer. What's one thing you can't live without?
My family.
A personal theme song or your favorite song?
Lose Yourself, Eminem, hands down.
What is your favorite sport?
Basketball.
What is the last TV series you binged?
If I say this, y'all are gonna laugh, but it was really Love Is Blind season 4. Sometimes you gotta have escape.
What's your favorite part of the day?
Favorite part of the day? My morning coffee.
What is your favorite movie of all time?
I love Forrest Gump. I just love that movie. I could watch it any day of the week.
Run, Forrest, run.
Yep.
Who is your personal hero?
Outside of my mom, she's like number 1. I know everybody answers that, but she's pretty amazing. So I'm gonna just stick with it.
I know that would be probably a lot of our answers too.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place to travel to?
Italy.
What's the phone app you use the most?
Instagram, way too much.
Me too. Thank you so much, Danita. This has been a fantastic conversation with you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and to be today's moderator.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you also to Urban Alliance. I am proud to be an Urban Alliance intern.